Johnny Depp picked up the phone and felt the world shift beneath his feet. He hadn't been fired. Not officially. But the truth was even worse. The voice on the other end was calm, almost hesitant. It belonged to someone Johnny had known for years, a lighting tech who had worked on several of his films. They weren't close, but there was always mutual respect. Tonight, though, his voice trembled. "Hey, man. I don't know if you've heard yet," he said, "but they're holding casting sessions for your role, quietly, off the books." Johnny froze. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low. "I mean, they're auditioning people to replace you. Same character, same script, just ... not you." There was no warning. No phone call from the studio. No explanation. No meaning. Nothing. Just whispers behind closed doors. A plan moving forward without him, like he'd already been erased. His stomach sank. Not from anger, but from something colder. A quiet, sharp betrayal. After decades of building trust, pouring his soul into every performance, this is how it was going to happen. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just stood there, phone in hand, feeling the ground disappear beneath him. Johnny Depp wasn't just another actor in Hollywood. For more than 3 decades, he built a career that was unlike anyone else's. He was the man who could disappear into a role so completely it felt like magic. From the eccentric, wild-eyed characters to the quiet, broken souls Johnny brought them all to life with fearless passion. Whether it was the quirky Captain Jack Sparrow or the mysterious Edward Scissorhands, he made each character unforgettable. Fans didn't just watch Johnny Depp's movies, they loved him. They connected with the person behind the roles, the man who seemed genuine and real in a world that often felt fake. His name alone could fill theaters, and studios knew it. They saw him as a golden ticket, a star whose presence guaranteed success. Behind the scenes, his name was a brand that studios banked on to sell millions of tickets, merchandise, and more. But Johnny wasn't just loyal to his craft. He was loyal to the people around him. From longtime collaborators to fans, he built deep connections. He was known for kindness, generosity, and an unusual humility for someone so famous. People believed in him, trusted him, and followed him through thick and thin. Yet the last few years had been far from kind. The bright lights dimmed, and the tabloids turned vicious. Legal battles spilled into public view, rumors and accusations swirling without end. His private life was dissected in headlines, and some questioned if the man they admired was the one they saw in the news. For Johnny, it was a painful storm, one that threatened not just his career, but his very identity. Still, through it all, his fans stayed by his side. They believed in the real Johnny Depp beneath the chaos. And Johnny himself, he kept fighting not just for his name, but for the truth. Little did he know, this fight was about to take a new, shocking turn. Behind the glossy doors of Hollywood studios, far from the cameras and flashing lights, decisions were being made, decisions that would change everything for Johnny Depp. Executives had gathered quietly, speaking in hushed tones. The buzz was growing about Johnny's recent troubles, the messy headlines, and the whispers in the media. For them, it wasn't just about his talent anymore. It was about risk, about protecting the studio's bottom line, but no one dared to tell Johnny directly. Instead, a plan took shape, a plan wrapped in silence and secrecy. There would be no official firing, no dramatic announcement. The studio's approach was far more calculated. They would replace him slowly, quietly, almost like he'd never existed. Scripts were being rewritten in secret. Scenes that once belonged to Johnny's characters were being altered or removed entirely. New lines were being added to introduce different characters meant to take his place. The project was evolving without him, inch by inch. Invitations for important meetings and rehearsals stopped coming. Emails went unanswered. When Johnny's agent asked for updates, vague replies hinted at creative direction changes. But no one would admit what was really happening. The studio was erasing Johnny not with a loud bang, but with a quiet, deliberate fade. Even those who worked closely with him started to feel the shift. Conversations stopped, messages went cold, and calls became rare. It was as if the entire team was being told silently to move on without their star. Johnny wasn't just being replaced. He was being forgotten, slowly, carefully, like a secret the studio hoped would never get out. And yet, despite the coldness of it all, no one had the courage to break the news to him. Not a single person told Johnny Depp the truth. They wanted to avoid confrontation, drama, and public attention. But what they didn't realize was that silence can be louder than words. This quiet betrayal wasn't just about a role or a film. It was about trust shattered and respect lost. And Johnny was about to discover it not from the studio, but from a voice he trusted in the shadows. The moment when he finally learned what was happening would change everything forever. It was late at night when the phone rang. Johnny wasn't expecting any calls, especially not from someone on set. But when he saw the name, a small flicker of hope sparked inside him. It was a crew member he had worked with before, someone he thought he could trust. "Hey," the voice whispered, cautious, "are you still attached to the project?" Johnny's heart skipped a beat. "Of course I am. Why wouldn't I be?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then the voice lowered even more, like sharing a secret. "People are talking, casting rumors. They're auditioning others. It's happening quietly. But the crew's hearing things you haven't been told." Johnny's mind raced. How could this be? How could the people working alongside him be hearing about his replacement before he did? He felt a strange mix of shock and disbelief. Thanked his friend quickly, but the question echoed in his mind. Is this true? Am I being pushed out? The next morning, Johnny called his agent. He expected reassurance. Instead, there was silence, no clear answers, no denials, just vague promises to look into it. That silence was louder than any words could have been. The truth hit him like a punch. He wasn't being replaced because of a choice he made. He wasn't being told because they thought he deserved respect. He was being phased out quietly, carefully, without his knowledge. Johnny sat back, phone still in hand, feeling the weight of betrayal settle deep inside. The world he thought he knew, the world where his work and loyalty mattered, was crumbling. Around him, this wasn't just a casting decision. It was a quiet erasure, a silent dismissal, and worse, it was happening behind his back. In that moment, Johnny knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let this slide. Not without a fight. When Johnny finally let the truth settle in, his first feeling wasn't anger. It was hurt deep, quiet hurt. Not the kind that explodes in rage, but the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question everything. He lay awake for hours, replaying every moment, every meeting, every smile, every contract signed with trust and hope. And now it felt like none of it mattered. Was I really that disposable? The question echoed in his mind over and over. After all the years, the sacrifices, the hard work, was he just someone to be quietly erased when it suited the studio? Johnny thought about walking away. Maybe it was time. Maybe the fight wasn't worth it anymore. He was tired, the legal battles, the endless gossip, the media storms, tired of proving himself, tired of feeling like a target. For a moment, the idea of silence and retreat was tempting, to fade into the background, to disappear from the chaos, and to find peace somewhere far from Hollywood's cold lights. But then something inside him shifted. It wasn't anger. It wasn't bitterness. It was a quiet fire, spark that refused to be snuffed out. He remembered why he started this journey in the first place. The love for acting, the thrill of creating something real, the connection with fans who saw him, not as a headline, but as a person, and more than that. He remembered who he was, a man who didn't back down when the world turned its back. A man who fought with his heart, even when the odds seemed impossible. No, he whispered to himself, I won't go quietly. That simple decision marked a turning point. He would face this betrayal head on, not with anger, but with strength. Not with bitterness, but with grace. Johnny knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready. Ready to stand tall. Ready to reclaim his voice. Ready to shake Hollywood in a way no one expected. Because sometimes the deepest hurt is what fuels the strongest fire. And Johnny Depp was burning brighter than ever. When Johnny Depp learned about the studio's plan to quietly replace him, many expected him to explode. A fiery public rant, a lawsuit filed with rage and sharp words, a messy battle played out in headlines and courtrooms. But Johnny surprised everyone. Instead of anger, he chose something unexpected, a quiet, powerful move that shook Hollywood to its core. A few days after the whisper about his replacement, the studio was hosting a private event. It was a gathering of producers, actors, and top executives, all there to celebrate the next big project without Johnny. The invitations had carefully left his name off the list. But Johnny showed up anyway. No grand announcement. No shouting. Just calm, steady footsteps as he walked through the doors. When the room noticed him, the air went still. Eyes widened. Conversation stopped. The man they thought was gone was standing. Right in front of them, composed, dignified, and completely unshaken. He didn't demand answers or make accusations. Instead, he mingled quietly with fans who had come to support the film, speaking kindly and genuinely, as if nothing had changed. He greeted producers with a warm smile, shaking hands with actors and crew members alike. His presence was a silent reminder he was still here, still real, and still strong. But the real moment came later that evening. Johnny posted online a photo of a handwritten letter. The words weren't filled with bitterness or anger. They were simple, honest, and deeply moving. If I'm no longer right for the role, let me hear it from your heart, not your silence. Those words struck a chord with fans worldwide. The letter wasn't a demand or a complaint. It was a plea for respect, for truth, for humanity in a business that often forgot what those things meant. The internet exploded. Social media buzzed with support. Fans shared the letter, turning it into a symbol of courage and dignity. Hashtags trended, calling out the studio for their silence and praising Johnny for his grace. Fans flooded comment sections with stories of how Johnny's work had touched their lives, how he wasn't just an actor but a source of inspiration. Celebrities began to speak up too, expressing solidarity and criticizing the studio's secretive behavior. Johnny's bold yet quiet response had done something powerful. It shifted the narrative. No longer was he a victim of a cold, silent replacement. Now he was a man who faced betrayal with honesty and strength, inviting the world to see the truth. The studio was caught off guard. They had planned to replace him in secret, hoping no one would notice. Instead, Johnny had turned the spotlight right back on them with grace, dignity, and a voice that couldn't be ignored. And for the first time in weeks, the world was watching. Johnny Depp wasn't disappearing. He was making sure everyone saw the truth. One heartfelt word at a time. Johnny's letter didn't just echo online. It ignited a wildfire. Almost overnight. Hashtags flooded social media. Hashtag respect Johnny. Hashtag tell the truth. Hashtag stand with Depp. Fans, moved by his calm courage, banded together like never before. They shared his letter, reposted memories of their favorite roles, and demanded answers. Many began boycotting the studio's pages, leaving comments and reviews questioning their loyalty to artists. Petitions sprang up, urging the studio to be transparent and treat their talent with respect. The movement wasn't just online, it spilled into everyday conversations, from coffee shops to fan clubs. For a long time, many celebrities had remained silent, unwilling to risk their own careers. But Johnny's quiet strength changed that. One by one, some of Hollywood's biggest names spoke out, supporting him publicly. They condemned the secretive way the studio had tried to replace him, calling it unfair and disrespectful. The pressure built fast. The studio, which had hoped to quietly move forward, now faced a storm of public scrutiny they couldn't ignore. The silence that once shielded them was shattered by voices united in outrage. News outlets began picking up the story. Digging deeper, headlines exploded across websites and social media. Johnny Depp was never informed about recast, confirms. Friend, studio accused of silent betrayal. Fans rally behind Depp in unprecedented show of support. The narrative was no longer controlled by the studio's silence. It belonged to Johnny and his supporters. For the first time, the public saw a glimpse of the backstage world of Hollywood's power plays, and it wasn't pretty. Johnny's bravery, in the face of betrayal, had sparked a larger conversation about respect, transparency, and how stars are treated behind closed doors. And the studio? They realized they couldn't hide anymore. The backlash was real, loud, and growing. The world was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Faced with mounting pressure, the studio finally spoke, but their words were careful, cold, and calculated. They denied everything. It's all a miscommunication, they said. There was no intention to replace Johnny Depp. He remains a valued member of the project. But anyone paying attention could see the cracks in that story. Behind the scenes, things weren't adding up. The actor they had quietly auditioned to replace Johnny suddenly backed out of the role. Rumors spread quickly. He felt the heat from fans, the media, and the backlash, and decided to step away. The studio, now scrambling to regain control, reached out to Johnny with a surprising offer, a new script, a reimagined role, crafted just for him. On the surface, it looked like a chance to come back, to reclaim his place, but Johnny knew better. This wasn't an apology. It wasn't a gesture of respect, it was damage control. A way for the studio to save face without truly admitting they'd wronged him. They were trying to rewrite the story, both on screen and off. Johnny read the new script carefully. The role was different, smaller, less central. The character had changed, diluted. No longer the lead that had once carried the film. It was a way of saying, we want you back, but only if you accept less. Johnny's heart sank. He realized this offer was more about optics than truth. More about appeasing angry fans and calming the storm than about honoring the actor himself. In that moment, he understood the full extent of the betrayal. It wasn't just the silent replacement, it was the studio's attempt to control the narrative, to minimize his role in a story he had helped build. Johnny could accept the offer and quietly slip back into a diminished role, or he could stand firm, hold on to his dignity, and refuse to be a pawn in their game. The choice was his, but one thing was clear, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. After receiving the studio's offer, Johnny sat alone, wrestling with his thoughts. Returning to the project, even in a smaller role, was tempting. It could be his way to prove he was still strong, still relevant, to show the world that he hadn't been broken by betrayal. Maybe accepting would bring peace. A chance to move forward without more drama, but deep inside, a louder voice spoke to him. A voice that reminded him who he really was. I'm not a piece they can place when it suits them, Johnny thought. Not a character to be swapped out, minimized, or forgotten. He wasn't just an actor. He was a person with dignity, a man who deserved honesty and respect. With that clarity, Johnny made his decision. He turned down the offer, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with quiet strength and unwavering dignity. He didn't need to prove himself by taking less than he deserved. Instead, Johnny took to social media once again. This time, his message was brief but powerful. Respect isn't earned through roles. It's earned through truth. The words resonated deeply. Fans saw not just an actor, but a man standing tall in the face of injustice. Hollywood watched as Johnny refused to be a silent player in a game designed to erase him. His choice wasn't just about one film or one role. It was a bold statement, a reminder that true respect comes from honesty and integrity, not from scripts or contracts. Johnny's final decision sent a clear message. He wouldn't settle for less. He wouldn't let silence and secrecy define his story. In walking away, he took control of his narrative on his own terms, and in doing so, he shook Hollywood in a way no studio had expected. Because sometimes the strongest voices are the ones spoken in silence. After Johnny's quiet but powerful stand, a change began to ripple through Hollywood slowly, like a storm gathering strength. Actors, once hesitant to speak up, started to rethink their own contracts. They demanded clearer terms, better respect, and more transparency from studios. Johnny's experience became a cautionary tale and a rallying cry. Behind closed doors, studios began to realize the old ways weren't working anymore. The secret decisions, the quiet replacements, the silence around difficult truths, they no longer held up under the weight of public scrutiny. Though Johnny said little more publicly, his actions spoke volumes. He showed the world that dignity and grace could shine brightest in the darkest moments. His refusal to settle, his choice to walk away rather than accept less, inspired others to stand firm. Hollywood, a place often defined by glamour and power, felt the impact of that quiet storm. The conversation shifted. It wasn't just about box office numbers or star power anymore. It was about respect, honesty, and human decency. Johnny Depp's story became a symbol, a reminder that even when the world tries to erase you, the truth has a way of coming back. That strength isn't just about fighting loudly, it's about standing tall with grace. Even when the world turns its back, his legacy wasn't just the roles he played on screen, it was the courage he showed off it, and that courage left a mark, one that Hollywood won't forget anytime soon. Sometimes it's everything, but standing up, even when you feel alone, can shake the world. Johnny's story reminds us that true strength comes from courage and grace, not just loud words. If his journey moved you, please like this video and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. And don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful stories that inspire and uplift. Your voice matters. Use it to make a difference. Thank you for being here.